Hi everybody, it's Oksana here on this very sunny day. I'm bringing you this really brightly lit video of this swirly pendant. So this is a design I've been doing for quite some time, and I decided to finally make a tutorial for it. It's a very swirly design. It has so many little loops and swirls basically everywhere. And in this design I'm using a round stone, but whatever stone you use, make sure that there can be a gap above it. So if this stone was a teardrop, it would fill in the gap and that wouldn't work. But if I put the teardrop upside down, then the top of it would be rounded, just like my circle here, and the point would be down here, so that would work that way. An oval would work as well. Even something like a rectangle or a square would work. So let's go ahead and get started. So first I'm going to take some 21 gauge square copper wire. Here's my spool. This is from Rio Grande, where I buy my wire online. And I'm going to take 3 pieces of this wire. I pre-cut them. So here they are right here, 3 equal pieces. And they are, I'm just kind of estimating based on the size of my stone, that they are, let's see here, about 8 inches, 20 centimeters / 8 inches roughly. Now this will vary with your stone size. So I have quite a small stone. Let me show you here. Sorry, the sun just came out, so it's like super bright. Just it's like one part. But my stone is only, is it ½ inch? It's a little more than ½ inch. Let's do this side. So a little more than ½ inch in millimeters. It's about 16, 17 millimeters. So it's quite little. And it's not particularly thick or anything like that. It's just small all around. It's a little blue labradorite. And for that reason, I'm using 21 gauge wire, which is a pretty thin, I guess you could say flimsy wire if you're going to use it for a larger stone. That's how it's going to feel. So unless you have a little stone like mine, I suggest using a different gauge of wire. So if your stone is a bit bigger, maybe like medium sized, then I suggest 20 gauge, and if it's larger than that, maybe kind of like medium large, then 19 gauge, and if it's quite large, then 18 gauge square. So that's how I would go about it based on the size of stone that you're working with. And of course you probably will need to cut it longer. The reason I cut mine to be 8 inches is because that will work for the stone that is my size. So I'm finding the middle now. And let me grab my ½ round wire. Alright, this is my ½ round wire. It is 22 gauge. I'm going to try and move my camera so the sun is not blinding you guys. But 21 gauge, ½ round. Again, I ordered online from Rio Grande. So I'm just keeping it on the spool. And in the center here, I'm putting it the flat side down, and I am wrapping to make a connection. And I usually like to do this a number of times, not too few, just so I have a nice thick little connection here. So now I'm going to trim my wire. And I'm going to trim both ends. And then I'm going to squish it. Well, first I'm going to make sure it's still centered. Okay, yeah, it is. Because you can kind of move it until you squish it down. Oh, sorry, it's like hair. Once you squish it down, it's harder to move. So just pressing it with my pliers flat. And then it's really going to stay put once you do that. And then see these little wire ends that we cut right on the front there. just like that. Okay, so this is going to be the inside that's going to be touching my stone, so those wire ends will be hidden. So my stone is round, so I'm going to start bending it in like a rounded type of shape, and then I'm going to take my stone, and what you want to do is you just want to put it down flat on like a table or something, but I'm doing it in the air for you guys, but I would recommend not doing it in the air because I find it to be harder to do that way. So something like that. I'm just trying to get it nice and centered. There we go. And now I'm putting a little bend at the top here with my finger. Like this. So here's what our frame is looking like. And if you noticed, I left a nice large gap up top. We're going to need that to put our swirls in. So once you've done this, we are back to the half round. Where's my half round? Here it is. And let me just untwist it here. Just gonna hold this together. So it's basically 3 wires right on top of the other 3 wires, the way that they're lined up and everything. And first I'm just gonna wrap a few times around all of them here. And I'm just gonna squish that a little bit, kind of press it all together. And then this little end, the little tail wire here, I'm just gonna trim that off and leave myself a little bit so I can tuck it away. So I'll show you here in 1 second. So this little end, this is the back here. I'm basically just taking that little end and tucking it away in between. So in here. See that? Okay, and I'm just pushing it. Okay, just like that. Okay, so this is our front. Back to the front here. I'm going to take 2 wires, 2 of the frontmost wires. I'm just going to separate them out a little bit from the other wires. Okay, and with this wire that I'm going around and around and around, I'm just going to come back to the front, and then I'm going to wrap it around these 2 wires. And that is going to form my bail. So I'm going to wrap for quite a while here because it needs to be quite tall so that it can be a bail. But here is what I mean. See that? So just like that, continue that for a bit of time. All right, so it's getting a little bit twisted, which happens often. See the bail, because it's 2 wires, kind of twisting this way. But once you start here and you press it flat and you just kind of go all the way up, it's gonna fix that twist and untwist it. There we go. See? So now I'm just going to trim that wire, leaving the end here in the back. So this is the front, that's the back. Sorry about the sun. All right, so now we have 2 wires that are coming from this side, and then 2 wires here. You can separate them out. We're going to take our bail and we're going to bend it. You can use a tool to give it a nice round shape, or you can bend it by hand, whatever you want to do. But as you're bending it, you want to tuck it in through the frame like that. Okay? And now we're just taking these little ends and we're bringing them back to the back, like that. And I'm just going to trim them, give them a little bit an extra, leave a little extra, because we're going to tuck them away. Okay, so we're on the back now. Here's our little ends. I'm just taking them and I'm tucking them down into the frame, just kind of pressing it in there. Okay, now the other one, take it, tuck it into the frame. That's the back, this is the front. Okay, now before I do the top decoration bit, I'm going to put my stone in. So I just need to cage it in. So I'm going to take the wires here on the back, just the very backmost wires, one on each side, and I'm bending it onto the stone. There's a little bit of marker, if you noticed, on the back of my stone. And I just put that there so I remember which way to position the stone, because labradorites tend to look best at certain angles. So see, this way it looks blue, but say I put it like this, it's kind of harder to see the blue. You have to like tilt it. So sometimes I do that and I make myself a little marking so I know how to position it. All right, so I bent the wires on the back here. Now it can't come out the back, but here on the front, what I'm going to do is I'm just kind of wedging that in there to try to separate the frontmost wire from the rest, and then I'm just putting a little bend into it like this. Okay, just like that. And on the other side as well, just kind of wedge your pliers in here. And these are the best pliers. I have them linked underneath in the description of the video. They are Xuron pliers. I got them on Amazon, and they're the best because they're so tiny. They have such fine points. You can really get in there, especially when you're doing something little like this with a small stone and thin little wires. All right, so here we go. Stone is in, stone is secure. All that's left to do is all those swirls at the top. Okay, so we're gonna start with this side here. If one side is shorter than the other, then do this on the shorter side. It's hard to get, you know, everything perfectly centered, so you might end up with one set of wires being slightly longer than the other. So these are my shorter wires. I'm just bending them this way. And then I'm kind of pressing here with my finger, and I'm bending them this way. Okay, just like that. And now I am tucking them. They're gonna go in through here. So just start bending them around, coming through. You might need your pliers at some point because it's kind of hard to grab the wires. Okay, just like that. And now I'm just using my pliers here and pressing down here. And now I'm bending the wires this way, just like that. Okay, so they're coming this way, curving, making a little curve, and going kind of to the back, through here, and then coming out the front, just like that. Now I'm just gonna separate them a little bit. And I'm going to cut them. The way I'm going to cut them is I'm going to cut this one short so that I can make a little loop. There's just enough to make just like one little loop. And then this one that's next to it, I'm going to cut it longer, like twice as long almost. See that? One little short one and one twice as long. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of hold this upside down because it's easier for me to work with it that way, is I'm going to squish the tip of this wire. That's just how I make my loops. However you make yours is, you know, perfectly fine. I like to just squish the little end though, because I find that it makes more of a seamless type of loop. And that's all I'm doing. I'm just making a loop. Just a little circle. Okay, and then this next wire, I'm just pressing it. It's just going along the edge. I'm using my pliers to help guide it. See that? Just going right along the edge of the other one. And now here, I'm gonna loop it in the opposite direction. Okay, just like that. So we've got two little loops, and you can use your pliers if you need to kind of close the loops a little more or play around with them, adjust them in any way. But basically that's it for that side. Now one thing that personally bothers me, so I do this next step, may not be necessary, but I like to do it anyway. This little loop here, see this, the bottom one especially, if you kind of pull on it, it can come up, like it can move. So say it gets caught on your sweater or something, it'll lift up. It's not really like trapped or attached to anything, and that personally bothers me. So I like to tie it down. I like to tie it down with some of the 22 gauge round wire. So what I do is I put the 22 gauge wire in here. I just cut myself a little piece of it, just like a few inches long. I wrap it a few times around, like twice, and then the third time I put the wire through that loop, just like right through it to attach it, and then I make two more wraps. Okay, so it's two wraps around the frame, and then the third wrap is going through our little loop, and then two wraps around the frame again. And what you want to do here is you want to cut these little wire ends so they are in there, not on the outside part that you would see and touch, but just inside here, inside of the frame. Okay, so I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to press down those wire ends, and I'm just going to press down this whole bit here that I did. Just press it flat. And then you can also come this way and press it together as well. Okay? So for a little close-up, it's this little set here, set of wraps, and then it's holding this little loop here. So if it, you know, touches something like your sweater, like I'm touching it now with my finger, it's attached. Okay, so now these two wires, what I like to do is I like to take one of them and make it twisted just for looks. So let me think which one. I'm trying to think of how they're gonna go. I'm gonna do this one. Yes, I think I'll do this one. That's kind of closer to me. So I'm just holding it and I'm twisting my pendant, and the wire is getting all twisted. And you don't have to do this. It's just a nice look. See how it looks? I think it's pretty. So now, putting it back together, bending it down a little bit. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna follow this curve with those two wires, just following the curve. Now with my finger, I'm kind of pressing on it, or with my thumb. I like to hold it with my thumb, and I'm bending it this way. All right, so I've made a bend, and I'm keeping them flat next to each other, not one on top of each other, but side by side, like this. All right, so the bottom one, this is easier to do with your pliers at this point. I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna tuck it in through this little hole. See this little hole? Just tucking it through there. I'm basically wrapping it around the frame is what I'm doing, but I'm making sure that it comes out the bottom. Okay? Like this. You just have to kind of keep pushing it little by little with your pliers. So now, and I kind of press that there, nice and flat. Here's my wire coming out the bottom here. And then this wire on top, I'm gonna bend it. And again, using my pliers to guide it, I'm gonna hold it with my thumb. So when I use my plier, it doesn't move it out of place. And just wrapping it around and making it come through this big hole up here. Okay, just like that, pressing it flat. So now I have two wire ends. One here at the top coming out of this big hole, one here at the bottom, right above the stone. Now I'm gonna cut this one short. I'm gonna make a nice little loop. And then this one, I'm gonna cut it nice and long, and I'm gonna make a really big swirly loop with it. So I'll go ahead and start with this one. I'm just squishing down that end, again totally optional. Just helps me get the loop nice and tight. So I'm just gonna go with the loop. See the loop I got started there? I'm just gonna keep going with it. So it's gonna be like just swirly, swirly all around until I move it into this gap. See that? Just like that. Filling in the gap there. And now this bottom little one, just a tiny loop will do. Just like that. And that is it. That is how I make this really swirly little pendant. And let me try and adjust my camera again. I can't find a good angle here, but it's just so sunny outside and it's coming in through my window. But that's it. That's this little swirly pendant. Let me just kind of slowly show you all angles here. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye.